If you find 3 or 4 people that you can really trust in life, you're blessed.
Look, we're 4 different personalities. But the common thread, I think, is the word trust.
And everybody involved just rolled up their sleeves and said, what do we have to do? And we did it. And that's really how you gain that bond, is going through the tough times.
Some nights Cork laid awake, I'm sure, but other nights, I said, how you do this, Cork? He said, put my head on a pillow, so I go to bed till the next day.
I'd do it again, you know, if I had the choice, yeah, why not? But it definitely brings you to your knees. It's like running a marathon. The more you run, the more spiritual you get.
It doesn't take any faith if you got a pocket full of money, does it? It doesn't take any faith in your car still running. You know, it doesn't take any faith when your family's healthy. It doesn't take any faith when your wife or husband's happy. But faith comes when you get to the bottom of the barrel and find out it's not empty. Well, when I graduated high school, I left our school that I went to in my Browns to go to work for Isley Dairy, where I thought I would spend my life. I did a little bit of everything. I was hired into the warehouse and we put up orders for the stores. You could buy bread and, you know, canned goods and things. They had meat counter and they had soda fountain. They dried milk and we had roller dryers. I had a car. I would go in at 5 in the morning, 2 roller dryers I would clean. You work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. I took 6 at night till 6 in the morning. As a 19-year-old boy, you can imagine my social life sort of disappeared for 3-4 weeks. But I remember driving down Church Hill toward the red light and just sort of praying and say, Lord, I'm starting my life. I don't know what you have for me, but just guide my life. That was my plan. And then I went to work at a lumberyard and I found a job I loved because I hated the job I worked at Isley's. Didn't hate the people, but I hated the job. And my uncle who managed the lumberyard seen that I was doing building and learning construction, and he came to me and said, can you consider selling lumber for me? And I said, Charlie, I'm a bashful person, shy. I don't think I could do that. But I said, let Shirley and I pray about it. And let's see what God has. And we prayed about it, and I told Charlie if they'll give me a 6-month leave of absence, I will try it. And I did, and I found out that I loved it. You were strict commission, so if you didn't sell lumber, you didn't eat. I liked that fact, but it also had unlimited income. I just loved everything about it. Sold lumber for Charlie, and the owners of the lumberyard had a prefabricating housing business, and they bought the lumberyard to get their lumber wholesale. They got in financial trouble, didn't pay the lumberyard. Charlie ran the lumberyard, it made money, but their business didn't. They didn't pay us. Charlie saw the handwriting on the wall, he left. Hired me and left. I didn't have any other place to go, and so I stayed. They cut my commission. They took me off commission and put me on salary at about 60% of what I was making. And the owners came to me and said, would you manage the lumberyard? And I said, no. And they said, why? And I said, well, you're going to stick the suppliers that you're going to buy product from, and I'm not going to buy product from people knowing that they're going to get stuck. So no. They came to me 2 or 3 more times. And the last time they came to me, I said, all right, I will run the thing under 2 conditions. 1, you take my salary to what I was making on commission. And number 2, everybody I buy material from, I pay. So if I buy a load of windows from Anderson, we pay them. All the back stuff, you worry about that. And we did that until one day in the summertime, I drove in, parking lot was full of employees, and they were all standing around the back door of the office. And the sheriff was there, had a padlock on the door, and he said, people, you might as well go home. Company is bankrupt, bankruptcy protection, so we're gonna run through bankruptcy. And I remember driving away saying, okay, Lord, what am I gonna do? And I tried to find somebody who would hire me on an incentive basis. I didn't want to just work by the hour. Pay me on commission. But I wanted to interview with a company, wanted a salesman. And they wouldn't interview me because they wanted somebody with a college education. So I thought, well, I got to do something. So a friend of mine I worked with sold cemetery property for a cemetery in Warren. So I sold cemetery property, tombstones. Charlie went to work for a place that sold prefabricated houses, so I sold prefabricated houses. And I did that at night, and I wanted to sell some pallets. I sold some for the lumberyard, but Charlie said, we don't want to do that, so don't do that anymore. I said, will you mind if I do it for myself? And he said, no, you'll never make anything with doing it. I said, well, not a problem as long as you don't have a problem. No, he said, that's fine. And so I asked Finley to join me, and we started a little company called Fennell Products. That was my life. Come home, change shirts, and off I go. Finley also had a customer. He had one large customer. And in the month of November, his large customer made the company $350, and all I ever sold amounted to $100, $150. And he came to me and he said, you know, I'd be better off without you. And I thought about that, and the Lord sort of spoke to me and he said, cut it loose. So I called Finley up and I said, Finley, I'm going to take you to lunch and we're going to talk. And he said, okay. Sat him down and I said, Finley, you were right. You'd be better off without me. He said, no, Cork. I said, no, we're going to break this thing up. I would like the company name. Oh no, I want the company name. I said, we only have one account. I've got quotes out for 4 or 5 months with Fennell Products on it. No, I want the name. I said, okay, you keep the name. I said, we'll split the petty cash, and we split up. Reverend James Wardrop, Pentecostal pastor, has been a friend of the family for years.
He worked in the coal mines in West Virginia. He was in his 80s, and his skin was so light, he was like a baby. Both Quirk and Uncle Charlie, we had this company called Kings, and Brother Jim served the Lord his whole life, and he had no retirement, so they took him in and paid him a stipend, salary, whatever you want to call it. Well, the IRS regulated, audited the books and everything. And they classified Jim as a guru.
And whenever we needed prayer, we'd always call Brother Jim. Okay, Jim, let's get together, we pray.
His thing was to pray. And Brother Jim, always pray. And when he was here, somebody would say, okay, because Jim would pray for the whole world. You never knew how long he was going to be praying. So we would say to Jim, you have 10 minutes after that. You can keep praying, but the rest of us have to go back to our job.
And so when I'm now out of business at the lumber yard and I am working Litco and working then Fennell Products, and I said, Jim, we need to pray. I'm looking at going out on my own. And he said, okay. And he had a home on Cohasset in Youngstown, up off of Glenwood Avenue. Nice home, older home, but it was empty. And he says, let's go to Cohasset. I said, okay. So we're gonna pray all night. And we prayed all night about Litco. We just kept moving forward. And a couple of times we pray all night. That was the foundation of our business. And Dad and I met one night and I said, Dad, I need a name for the company. And I want it to be short and easy to spell. And he said, okay. And we sat down and we talked and he said, how about Lipco, L-I-P-C-O, Lionel Products Company. I said, I like it, but let's do Litco, Lionel Treblecock Company, Litco. I said, I like that. He said, I like that too. And that's how we got our name. So we started going around putting out our quotes on Litco.
When I graduated from college, my major was accounting and economics. Cork, after he asked me, he says, why don't you come in and sell for me? I said, Cork, I don't know anything about selling. He said, I'll teach you. I said, okay. I was single, I had no obligations, etc. I said, oh, okay. He took me out one day and he came back, he said, now you're a salesman. I said, okay.
Ironically, I didn't plan on going to Litco. I was working out in the field, construction work, building houses, working on powerhouses. And when you're in the construction field outside, winter comes, you kind of get laid off for a little bit because of the weather conditions, mostly short times between different jobs. Well, I happened to be laid off because I worked for several different companies. The man that founded this company, Corky Treblecock, was going to Florida.
And Mick was a construction worker, a structural steel worker, tough as nails. What you have to be in that kind of business. And I asked him, I said, how'd you like to go to work? He was in between jobs in structural steel. How'd you like to go to work in the office for me for while we're going on vacation? I said, I'll pay you. He said, no, I don't want paid. I said, no, we're gonna pay you. So he come over and we gave him about 20 minutes training and said goodbye.
My job was part of the organization to buy lumber, buy pallets. Gary was out on the road at that point, and Gary was the best salesman because he was the only salesman, him and Cork.
He did that, and then he just stayed on, and he developed into the blessing that he is. I invited my dad. He retired from Isley's, and I looked at him, man, he's too young, and he's got a lot of wisdom. And I said, Dad, how'd you like to come work for me over here? I like that. He said, I can work in my shorts because there was no dress code. Come any way you wanted, just dressed.
It was Lionel who contacted me to see if I wanted to come in for an interview. And we had a good interview, and we probably had 3 or 4 of them. He offered the position and I agreed to take it. And he sat me beside him out front. His desk was to the left of my desk. He acted as a mentor and a trainer. And every day, somewhere around noon or whatever, he'd turn his chair around and We would just talk about a lot of different things. We'd talk a little bit about the business, and we would talk about investing and about family and about faith. He was excellent for me because he encouraged me and he taught me the basics of the business.
My dad set up in the front office, and he was a real spiritual influence in the office. He was a blessing in the business, and he knew how to pray. And he was probably the spiritual focal point for our company.
I don't know the exact number, but I'd probably say 7 to 12 people of the course walked in the door, and the receptionist was right there, and they would say, I don't know why I'm in here, but I just kind of felt drawn here. And immediately my dad, he always looked for that opening that he could share Jesus Christ with people. He would immediately say, I know why you're here, and he'd come back here. And probably in 2 hours, I don't know if anybody came out of here that didn't accept Jesus Christ.
If you look for God's hand on your life, you'll see it. I had a real estate company that I bought into. And Gary worked for the real estate company as a sales agent. And he's about 20 years old. Bought the real estate company, met Gary there, liked him. He's a good salesman. And after a while, I got rid of the real estate company. It wasn't something I wanted to do long term. And Gary came here to work. He came into the office and worked under my dad, who was a really good influence on him.
So I'm coming in as a 20-year-old guy, doesn't even know what a wood pallet is. Never paid attention to it, never worked in a manufacturing facility, but I like Corky, right? And okay, this looks like an opportunity to learn something. Back in those days, Litco was primarily a distributor of wooden pallets, which means we would find customers who were interested in buying pallets, and then we would source them through independently owned companies. And my job at that time was I started on the desk position out front in this building, and my job was to call customers, talk to them about their deliveries, try to get reorders, and then also try to match that customer up with a pallet shop that I felt would match their requirements.
Gary Sharon's been a real key part of that whole process. He started out, worked in the office, then went out on the road, then became one of the managers and is vice president today. This would have been 1962, December, and we were essentially without money. Dad would ask me, do you need anything? And I'd say, no. I don't have any extra, but I don't need anything. I told the family, don't buy Shirley and I Christmas presents. You want to buy for the children, fine. We can't reciprocate. And we were essentially broke, and we were zero. My grandmother, for Christmas, gave us $300. Grandma's $300 gave us some breathing room. The thing that is really neat about God when you're up against it is when you learn what faith is. You don't learn what faith is until you have no other place to go. January 1963, the company made $803.62. I still have the books. And Youngstown Sheet and Tube was started out to be one of our big customers. And back then, they blocked up steel on trailers, on hardwood 4x4s, 3x4s, etc. And they started building the pallets for us. Then I started finding more suppliers, and the company grew. And every month, we made more money than we did the month before. We were a sales organization, strictly a broker, but we took the credit risk. So if the customer stuck us, didn't pay us, we paid our suppliers I had no money, so I need positive cash flow. So we built the business on positive cash flow. And I'll show you how neat God is. I was a pretty naive person, but God can take a person who doesn't understand anything about business, about finance, except pay your bills, know what you owe, don't bite off more than you can chew. And it's just neat to see God doing the building blocks to prepare me for the next phase of my life. A lot of crazy things go on when you have a business in your home. It was just a real casual kind of atmosphere, but a hard-working atmosphere. And that's how we started. Shirley was my secretary. Down in the basement, under this kitchen, was our office. And I had my desk, then Shirley needed a desk. Took a wooden door. I built a knee space for Shirley. And then she had cubby holes for letterheads, envelopes, invoices. And I would write up a quote, give it to her. She'd type up the quote. And we'd send out quotes. She'd done all the invoicing, handled the checkbook, and took calls during the day while I was out selling. Doing that with children. And Packard Electric was a big customer of ours, and the guy I sold to didn't know I worked out of my house. And one day he called in and was talking to Shirley, and she had baby in her arms, our youngest, and he started to cry, and he says, "Is that a baby?" And Shirley said, "Yes." He said, "You working out of your house?" And Shirley said, "Yes." And I think a lot of things happened in business, selling industrial accounts. A lot of the people I called on were older, and I was 25 years old. And I think they sort of looked at me like their son or their grandson or something. And I had pretty nice reception from people that would give me a chance to show them what I could do. And Packard Electric happened to be a big customer of ours. We'd sell them 2, 3, 4 loads a week sometimes. Them, Sinclair Coppers, fascinating, the people that gave me a chance.
Very small operation at that time. I think there's Cork, his dad, and his brother Gary.
They had children's desks because we didn't have much room, because I had this desk and this big sidearm. And we had just enough room to put 2 little desks facing each other, put phones on their desks.
Cork always felt bad for me because we were in the basement, and his heart was always such, he always looked out for the people. When we were in the basement, there was no windows to see out of. He said, "Man, I feel bad for Mick." He told me this years later, because he's used to being outside working.
And we worked 5.5 days a week. You were out on the road Monday through Friday. Saturday you come in and did your paperwork. And we all gathered in the basement on Saturday and did paperwork. And when you were done, you went home. And that's how we worked. My motto was,
Go chase railroad tracks and smokestacks. And anybody that's there, you sell them. I said, okay. So I remember I went out the first time. I wasn't real bashful, but I wasn't real outgoing either. So I get to the first building. Must have circled the building 3 times. I went in and met with the people, et cetera. And as I started to go, then it started to, the confidence started to come. And I think my best year I sold, I think it was about 7 million.
and then we got into doing some other things that were ancillary, but we sold some brass and copper and sold chemicals, but we've always stayed into industrial business. We've never gone into retail. We finally had to finish the basement. We then moved out of this little cubby hole and we started putting some desks in the rest of the office. And then I caught Shirley one night about midnight washing diapers and doing invoices and things, and I said, "Shirley, I got to get you help. We got to have a secretary." And she said, "No, I can handle it." Shirley was then more part-time and sort of grew away from the business to take care of the family. And to be honest with you, I have 3 wonderful kids that know the Lord and are following in his footsteps. And it's primarily because of her. I was gone most of the time. First 11 years, we made more money every year. Business was better every year. And I got some pride and arrogance. I thought, here I am, a country boy, look at this business, it's making money, and I'm a business genius. Big mistake.
We never knew a down year. Every year was better than the other, so we always thought that was it. And when the pipeline got shut off, that was a rude awakening.
And then 73, 4, and 5 came, and the company went into a recession, and we lost money. First time in 11 years. And we'd make money 1 month and lose it 3. And we'd always lose more than we made.
I believe Dad was in the business at the time, and there were a few other people.
We all took a pay cut. Cork didn't take a pay cut. He just quit taking money, period, so his employees could have some income.
And Cork, I think he went almost a year. I think I went 9 months, and I think that's what Dad did, with no pay or limited pay. So the other people didn't have to take a cut.
3 or 4 or 5 years right after I started. So it wasn't a shock to me. I said, well, I guess the next step will be you get laid off. I was used to working construction work, and we finished a job, we got laid off, so it wasn't a big deal to me. Big deal to him because he owned the business.
And I tried to do everything, and finally one day I prayed and I said, Lord, you got to help me. I don't know what to do. And he said, no, you're a business genius. You know what to do. And that was when I found out pride and arrogance don't work in a Christian life. And I said, Father, forgive me. I will never forget this lesson. And I have never forgot that lesson. So you help me. And he helped me. And we got through that recession.
After coming out of that, I think Cork said, we're not going to do that again.
When we outgrew our basement here, God spoke to me one day, like he does sometimes, in your head, but don't come through your ears. Had him do that to me 3 times. And he spoke to me, he said, get out of your house, you won't grow here. I said, okay, Lord, here's what I need. I need 3,000 to 5,000 square feet. I need it within 5 miles of my home because I don't want to drive to go to work. I don't want to waste time. And I have to take my phone system. So I started looking and praying. For 2 years, nothing. Everything that come up turned out to be a dud. A banker with Union National Bank in Youngstown lived up the street, stopped in to see me, wanted to get my business. Sat at this table here at the one end, and he said, we were talking, and I said, you know, Bob, I want to get out of my office because we can't grow here in the basement. I've been looking for a building and I just can't find one. He said, well, there's a building over on Belmont that's for lease. Where? Told me. I said, I never seen it. He said, it's been for lease for a long time. I said, okay. So I got a hold of Mick. I says, find out where that building's at and who owns it.
And I said, you sure you want that building? He says, yeah. Matter of fact, my understanding was he was going to put a bar in this building and ended up being a testimony to God. And I presume Cork chose the cedar, which I didn't pay much attention to then, because if you look in Scripture, King Solomon's temple, a lot of cedar from Lebanon. That's how they built the temple. If you look around here, he said a lot of cedar. And he was more instrumental. I remember him praying to God for a building so we could get out of the basement. One time he asked God, he said, God, did you forget me? And Cork's a man of faith. Usually don't do that.
Called Bill Crane in to do the inside of the office, told him everything I wanted, and I like working with Bill and his electrician and his people because all I would do is say, hey Bill, I want this, this, and this. He would do it. Electrician, I want this here, I want that there, I want these lights. He'd do it. Never had a problem with him.
There's a couple different stained glass, but it was a couple and they put them together, and he wanted just something with the water and a peaceful, etc. No buildings, etc.
Point of the story is the guy was building the building for us. We didn't even know it. God's hand. You look back at a lot of things, you see God's hand.
And I looked at it and I said, when I put this building up, I want to put something on the front that let people know we're Christian. I don't want to put a cross, because to me that's a little hokey. But I got to put something. And we're down in Florida, and my daughter is studying Ohio history. And she said, Daddy, do you know what the Ohio State motto is? I said, no.
You know, it's a good story to read because it actually came about by an 11-year-old from Cincinnati. He wrote in to the Cincinnati Enquirer wanting to know how come the state of Ohio didn't have a state motto. Well, they put a contest on, and I believe it originated out of Columbus, and this boy came up with
God, all things are possible.
Believe it or not, it was a Muslim lawyer from Cleveland defended it because it didn't say Jesus and, you know, could be Muhammad. It was an ongoing court battle, and I think it wasn't until 1970 or 71 it was settled.
I said, Barb, thank you. That's going on the front of our building. And that's how that came about, was it is the Ohio State motto, and I put it on the building. As we got into broker and pallets, what we found out was our suppliers didn't always make the quality that we presented. Now we had our good suppliers that we could count on, but as you tried to develop new supply, you'd be disappointed, and they made your reputation bad because they didn't care if you were a broker. As that, I took responsibility. If it wasn't right, I made it right. If it cost you money, I pay you. You're my customer. You don't suffer because of something I do or who I hire to get it done does. And I said, we've got to get into manufacturing.
1972. And that year, Cork and I and our wives went to a trade show in Europe. And that's when we were introduced to the press molded wood fiber factory of Inca. We looked at it, Cork looked at it. He was always a student looking into the future. Me, I'm a now man. I don't look at it, I just do it. But he looked at it, didn't say much.
And I stood there with my peers, and everybody looked at him and said, they have no bottom boards, they'll never work in our country, we couldn't use those, et cetera, et cetera. And I looked at him and I thought, God, there's going to come a time when maybe these will be right for the market.
Well, what came about because the press wood is so different than the normal wood bound. Most of the people manufacturing this country at the World Pallet Congress said that presswood pallet will never sell over here.
I want to look into it. So I got a hold of the people over there and I said, we're interested in putting a plant over here. And he said, well, we're going to come to the United States and we're going to put a plant up in New England because the topography is much like Bavaria and we like Bavaria and we want to do that. And I said, I wouldn't put a plant there if I were you. And he said, why? I said, well, that's not where the business is. The business is in a golden triangle from Chicago to New York to Atlanta. So I said, I would put it somewhere close to where we're located because we're right in the center. So Hans and his wife came over.
Wolfgang and Dr. Inselkammer got together and Worslet agreed. And they came over here, and their first step was they went, of all places, in New York with a union, and that didn't work well. And so then they reached out to our association.
Corky and Gary had made an agreement with a German company who was producing molded pallets in Europe to build a plant in Dover, Ohio.
Little did we know what the journey was going to be like. So we started off, and the first plant was coming on stream, and we got commitments from people to buy our product that was more than the new plant could produce. And they decided they would put a second plant in, and they did.
And we have 2 plants, naturally, Dover, Ohio, and Sardis, Mississippi.
But when the plant started to produce and we were sending them out in volumes, then the customers started using them and figured out that because they didn't have bottom deck boards, that they had a difficult time utilizing them in their systems because they couldn't rack and they had a hard time with stacking.
So down the stream, customers said, don't ever ship us that pallet again because this doesn't work. We double stack and it's got modules on the bottom and it crushes the product. It does this, it doesn't fit in our racks. So we had people calling us saying, can we cancel our commitment? And I said, yes. I said, if you can't use them, I'm not going to force you to take them. That's not good business.
But eventually we did secure some business. But the big breakthrough was when Gary Treblecock closed a large volume account with the United States Postal Service. And that started the business to grow.
Inca and us made money hand over fist. It's neat how God works. The principal's big money guy, the nicest person you ever want to meet in your life. Just pleasant guy. Had more money than you could probably count. And he told me one day, he says, Corky, you're going to own this company. I said, no. I said, we can't afford that company.
Well, what happened, Dr. Inselkammer really helped, rightfully so, to develop the process in Germany. But he asked Wurzelit, when he sold the license to it, put 2.5% royalty in for himself and put 2.5%, and it was never disclosed in the documents to the limited partners. Well, when this all came up, then he came forth and told the people. He pays the 2.5% back to the limited partners, but he made no restitution with his general partner. Well, that created a schism. They didn't talk for 8 years. Believe this or not, the only person that was talked to were the attorneys and myself.
The general partner was getting up in age, and his son was being groomed. Hans's son was being groomed to run what he had built.
Well, it got down to the point Dr. Inselkammer's son got killed in a skiing accident.
An avalanche wiped him out, and he was the only one that died. He had a son and a daughter wasn't interested in business. And that sort of broke Hans's heart.
He wanted out, so he was ready to sell the general partnership shares. There was enough money in Inca that we could buy the general partnership shares. We could come in and declare a distribution, and enough cash would come out of Inca that we could pay for everything we bought. So we didn't have to go to the bank to borrow the money.
When we first started with the Germans, we were their exclusive sales agent. Then we ended up buying the place.
Well, we started the Dover plant with molded pallets because that's what they were making in Europe out of that process. For me, I always looked at Inca products and our business as three-dimensional molders of wood fiber. And the pallets were obviously a difficult one to try to get market share compared to the conventional way of doing things. So, but I always felt like we had the potential to do other things, other products with that. And we looked and looked and looked. Gary Treblecock recognized that there was a need for another vendor for core plugs, molded wood core plugs for the paper industry.
Big rolls of paper have plugs in them because they have big rolls or spools they wind them on, corrugated. And then they put a plug in them so they can put a small spindle to unwind them. The customer can. The manufacturer winds them on big spindles.
We said we looked to expand our footprint, so we wanted to make plugs. So we started with the 12-inch, which is 60% of the sales market.
Basically, the core plug started because we had a process in place that was very similar to what the market was used to. And there was only one significant other player in that marketplace. And so we came in as a competitor and it worked.
We try not to treat our competitors as enemies. And we got into selling core plugs to them. If they had a size they were in a bind for, we'd sell them to them.
We have a problem, we'll buy from them. And we've both exercised that.
So the other product that is fairly new with us is the extruded wood blocks. We primarily compression mold on large presses. The extruded wood block is a slightly different process. It goes through extruder, a continuous run, and then we cut it to a specific length or height.
So there's a long lead time, and there are things that happen. We had porch jammed up here, 10 months ago. Couldn't get in. What happens to the people that need those blocks? So the people here are looking for block suppliers here.
Growth factor, we just put $3 or $4 million in the plant, maybe $6 down at Dover, Ohio, and Sardis, Mississippi, to produce an additional item, which would be a wood block that goes into a wooden pallet. In other words, hardwood boards, press molded wood fiber block. Problem is, when you do something like that, you need more infrastructure.
When we started looking at that, we said, well, we're molding wood. We can do that. Just run our product to there. Well, we found out it ain't quite that simple.
You get so much material, that material has to be chipped to a certain size. Then it has to be mixed with special bonding agents. Then it's conveyorized up into these presses. Well, now we added 2 block lines, which can produce a lot of blocks. So now we need to increase our glue. We need to increase our wood chips. We need to increase our dryers to dry those wood chips. We need to decrease our residue. We get a lot of dust.
So we had to start modifying, and now we've got new equipment coming in to take the sawdust out to make the blocks better. We found out we can do things with the sawdust. We can use it for fertilizer. Farmers like it for fertilizer and loosening the soil.
Why? We can take those wood pallets, throw them into a big boiler. The boiler will burn them, use them as fuel to help us reduce our natural gas.
And we are always trying to become green, so we don't have waste going into the waste stream. That's our goal, is to become more green every year.
I'm Jaden Doty. I'm a supervisor at Inca Presswood Pallets. I've worked for Inca for about 3 years in November. So I started on the plugs, and when we started developing the block lines, I worked out here as production 1, and then I worked my way up to supervisor. When I started here, I was like 18 years old, fresh out of high school, no experience. And some of the training I've actually received was welding. Learned how to weld. Inca sent me to school. A lot of people, when they first see the robot, they think it's pretty crazy, which when I first saw it, I was like, that's crazy. I mean, it's a huge robot. It's picking up all these blocks by itself. It's all automated. And that's the technical aspect. You got to be able to run the robot, run the computers. The leadership of the company inspires me here because we don't really have bosses. We have leaders. And to me, that's like a big inspiration for me to show my guys that I'm not just their boss, I'm their leader. So when there's out here a problem, I'm not telling them, hey, you need to go fix this. I'm out here showing them that I'm here to help you guys, not just tell you that you need to fix it.
My name is Matt Doty. I'm the plant manager of the Inca Dover plant. I've been at the Inca facility for 11 years. So the obstacles as a plant manager are each day something new. I always say that each day brings something different anyway. COVID was a big one. Still is a little bit of a big one. Long lead times. The market's drastically changed over the last year and a half, where prices have gone up, lead times have gotten longer. So pre-planning, things of that nature are a big obstacle for us now. The workforce, of course, has changed since COVID, and it's more difficult to find people that come in and want to stay. So we work hard on each individual that comes in to make them feel like it's a place where they can work and fit in. The obstacles are varied for the plant manager, but I think we take them one step at a time, and we overcome them by separating them and just attacking that certain problem at the time that it arises. Here at Inca is very important, and the reason that it's so important right now is because we have so many new people. So we have to take, and folks that are more seasoned here have to really take the newer folks coming in under their wing. So safety is critical for us to be a viable company, and we don't want to ever have any incidents here that harm anybody. So we take it very seriously. There's banners throughout the plant. We have safety, when new hires come in, they're safety trained before they go out onto the floor. Megan does a great job of doing that safety training, and we supply all the safety needs for the folks, and if there's any questions, they're more than welcome to ask any of us. A lot of times I'm even on the floor and answering those kinds of questions.
What attracted me to come to Inca and Litco is the challenges that are presented here at the SARS facility. I've always wanted to be able to have control of a facility that was vertically integrated, where we were actually processing the raw material and turning it into a finished good.
And since I've taken over back in 2016 for both plants, everyone asked me what is the difference in the workforces between the two? And I tell people all the time, there's really not much. It's what you put into it. And people are people. They want to do a good job.
My name is Robert Richardson. I've been with Inca Presswood Pallets for 25 years. My job here is a production supervisor. Over the years since I've been here, I must 1,000-some people that walk in out these doors. I had a lot of smart people, and a lot of people just didn't care. But the people that are here right now are qualified people that love what they're doing.
We feel the reason people fail is either they're in the wrong job or we have not given them the tools to succeed. So we start with those core principles. And employees, I believe, respond to that. Everyone, no matter what generation they come from, wants to do a good job. They want to be taught, they want to grow, and they want to build relationships. So they respond to that. The challenge is we fail on our end, it can backfire, and it all becomes talk. So it's a really big challenge for the management staff to continue the mentoring and continuing the development.
Working with the management here at Inca and at Litco, I think has been very productive. I think they understand the situations that we're in and are willing to help us through that in order to be successful. I think it's been a really good relationship, and I'm glad that everyone's on the same page, because it's really important that everyone understands what the final objective is.
In 2013 and 2014, here in Sardis, as I was plant manager, we were having an incredibly tough time hiring skilled labor in the maintenance. I wrote a program called Spark that would implement industrial manufacturing education at the high school level.
Yeah, the Spark program is really interesting. It's more of a brainchild of Dale Hart, and he really recognized the need to be able to take high school kids and be able to train them in manufacturing. And there was not that hole was there within our educational system.
And at that point, I started looking at the vocational education programs in the local high schools and what I grew up with. And I realized there were very good programs in every county in the country, but they were mostly geared for commercial and residential and service type organizations. There were no industrial manufacturing training going on at the high school level.
So we identified the need, created a program, sold it to the South Panola School District. That's where I kind of stepped in and said, hey, I'll help you with it. He donated equipment. At my previous company, we donated equipment to be able to get those kids familiar with what manufacturing is about, because there's a cadence in manufacturing. It's, you're taking a raw material and you're creating a finished good. And I think we'll continue to support it with their internship programs because I think it's just an excellent way for these kids to get on-the-job training.
Inca's a very nice place to work. It's a good atmosphere. I'm hoping that one day, throughout the future, it'll be one of them Fortune 500 companies.
In America, you have a big problem. The big problem is product damage during transit.
I asked him, what other products should we be selling that enhances the experience of the customers with it? Well, that's when they said, that's when it comes up with the manufacturing of bulkheads, rubber matting, wood backs, etc.
So we make dunnage that fits between 2 pallet loads in a semi-trailer that could be 22 rows long. You put the corrugated dunnage in there and it keeps the pallets from moving back and forth, eliminate product damage.
Mickey found a plant up in Warren and we bought it, and it'd been set up for running plastic extrusions.
And we had to buy a building to move the business to. And that's why we had the business down there. It was established by another party who made a lot of just corrugated boxes, but he did start a dunnage line, and that's what we purchased from. After we bought that one, we said, well, maybe we can open up another one of those in Ohio.
It used to be we were going in just to sell airbags, so we were selling a product. Now we go in and sell a solution for blocking and bracing.
We got a place in Warren, Ohio that does that, and a place in Welford, South Carolina.
Sam ended up being the guy to run it, and Sam has really stepped up and really done a good job. He thinks about the customer, he thinks about productivity, he thinks about the process, and he's got some good Amish ingenuity. If you've been around him, you know what I'm talking about. He can make things work that other people can't make work. We're blessed to have him. He's a good man.
Several years ago, I went down to a company. They were making biomedical refrigeration units, and they had a problem. They were putting big boxes over the top of these biomedical refrigeration units, and every time they would take them to these hospitals, to take this box off, they had to take a Stanley knife and cut it. And so when they would cut the box, they would cut the side of the unit and they'd have a big scratch in it. These are $30,000, $40,000 units. Brand new that you just bought, now it's got a scratch in it. When the market gets really tough and it gets tight, people pay more attention to damages. They can't afford to send stuff out and have it damaged. They don't want to buy a refrigerator and have a big dent in the side of it. They don't want to buy a new range and have a scratch on it. And in turn, our customers, when they buy stuff on a pallet, they don't want to get there and the pallet be all over the trailer. You know, that cost them time and money to fix that. We got creative and made some creative products that we packaged for people. You know, where we started with dunnage bags, then we got into doing the corrugated dunnage, then we got into doing some wood crating and pallets and things such as that. We got into doing some corrugated pallets for some companies. We got into selling rubber matting, which is a trans mat that helps stuff from moving back and forth. Had a company that's real close to us here that called me one day. They were looking to buy 5 airbags. Then we've probably done somewhere in the neighborhood of, I would guess, $12 to $15 million worth of business with them over the last several years. They're our #1 customer.
My position here is supervisor, floor supervisor. I've been here 6 years, July 21st. Sam and them, they just put a lot of trust in me to operate the floor. I was like the lead guy out here before I even was promoted to supervisor. I did the laminating, the cutting, help build, help ship. I was just all over the place. And I'm a hands-on type of guy, and I just can't walk around and delegate all day. I gotta be out there with them, just to let them know that it's not nothing that I won't ask y'all to do, that I won't come out here and do myself. God Almighty that wakes me up and allows me to wake up every day. I don't wake up by an alarm clock. It's His blessing, His grace, His mercy that breathes life in my body that I get up every day. It's not I get up on my own. And be also encouraging to everybody. Say something positive to them. Good morning, how you doing? You know, and all day long, you all right? Just, I'm glad, thank you for, you know, and all day long, just giving thanks.
My formal position is, Vice President of Litco Corner Protection, but I'd consider myself an analyst in the manufacturing group, the founder, or just a lead in Julius Pet Supplies. I was actually up in Cleveland with KeyBank for like 2 years in investment banking. I was an associate with them, and then prior to that, I was with Brown Gibbons Lang as an analyst for 2 years. Primarily focused on industrials and manufacturing-based companies, so it kind of was an easy transition for me to migrate from something like that into a Litco setting. Litco Corner Protection, actually we purchased Atlas Packaging officially January 4th is when we actually took over the business. And we manufacture Corner Board, Corner Pro, Edge Pro, Flex Pro, anything that goes on the outside of a unit load to protect the pallet during transportation or storage or anything like that. We manufacture it using multiple plies of paper. They laminate together and we form a rigid angle to it where you can kind of use it for strapping or any other types of applications. Mainly, I actually think it's been a really good acquisition for us, and especially for the manufacturing team. Everybody tends to use it, so it might just be an easy conversation point and get these guys into some of the tougher places they may have had trouble getting into before. So, Julius Pet Supplies. Julius was like one of the first projects I had coming in. They just kind of said like, hey, what can you do with this? There just seemed to be a need in the marketplace for like a sustainable pet products provider. And I think at the heart of Litco, some of our products, whether if it's like, corrugated material or even our Inca presswood pallets, like everything's wood, sustainable based. Why not formulate a company based on that? Whether it's through partnerships or, product acquisition, that's kind of where Julius kind of started. I think we're getting to more of a modern pet supplies brand.
I think we've proven ourselves to have a good reputation in the market. We do stuff with honesty and integrity.
The business was founded upon God's principles, which it was. It's exercised and established and operated today on God's principles on an honest basis.
You can't do that in a lot of companies, That's the beauty of the company that we work for. And when God birthed this company into Corky 60 years ago, what Corky did is he made a decision that he was going to go into business with God. And a lot of people will say, well, we're in business with God. But the issue is when it really comes down to it, that's putting a sticker on the window or saying, this is a part of our statement.
We live it. I don't mean that in a braggadocious way, because we aren't perfect. We screw up and we do things we shouldn't, and we got to fix things, and we got to apologize, and we got to make things right. That's part of life. But we live it in little things.
And I always tell people, if you see us doing something that is contrary to that book, call us to task, because that's our ultimate guide. That is how we try to walk.
Treat others the way we want to be treated. Very important here. We always do what we say we're going to do, even if it causes us pain or money.
When you can go out and you can do the job for people and you can do it with integrity and they see who you are, the Bible says that we are the light of the world. We're to go out and let our light shine before men. That doesn't mean we go out with tracts and pass out tracts. That means everything we do in business, that people understand who you are. There's something different about these people.
We were going through some very difficult times a number of years ago, and we had a military contract that we fulfilled. We received the payment on it, but they overpaid us somewhere around $10,000. So the salesperson came to me and said, what are we supposed to do with this? And I said, we have to call them and tell them that, you know, it's overpaid and they'll have to adjust the payment. He did that and then came back to me and said, well, the contractor said to just keep the money. So we went to see Corky and we talked about it, and Corky said, absolutely not. We're not going to keep the money. And it impacted me because we were going through a time when we were losing money. And we explained to him the contractor wouldn't take it. So we all got on a conference call with the contractor. Again, she said, no, it's a lot of work to fix it, just keep it. But he wouldn't take that as an answer. So ultimately, we got it worked out, and they took the money back.
The Lord knew that he couldn't do anything unless the Father told him to do it. And so how many times did he pull away to pray?
We start every morning with prayer. If you don't want to join us, you don't have to. But we start every morning with prayer, and we gather in a circle in the front office and pray. Anybody has needs, we pray for their needs.
Had it in the basement, upstairs in Cork's living room, we would pray. And I think we prayed, I know for sure, every Friday. I think it was Tuesday and Friday. Same thing in this particular building, we would pray in the conference room every Tuesday, every Friday, whoever wanted. We had people come from the outside and pray. Bankers, lawyers, hold hands, pray in a circle in the morning. Matter of fact, they had us on the front page of the Vindicator.
I think the morning prayer keeps us grounded in knowing that we're responsible to a higher power, and that higher power is there to help us. If we're at work, if we're at home.
First and foremost, I ask God to bless the works of my hands every day, that I not be a disgrace to my work, honor him. So with him in all of my endeavors out here on the floor, I put and trust everything in him, that he's gonna guide me to say the right things and do the right things.
It doesn't take any faith if you got a pocket full of money, does it? It doesn't take any faith in your car still running. You know, it doesn't take any faith when your family's healthy. It doesn't take any faith when your wife or husband's happy. But faith comes when you get to the bottom of the barrel and find out it's not empty.
Problems, you always have problems in business. Didn't bother us, we just charged ahead. Faith, I guess, you might call it.
In our journey of faith, I think there are milestones that we see, and then there are other times that, walk by faith. Truthfully, not our faith, it's his faith. I told Cork, I said, Cork, I have real peace. We pray every week for the company. We pray every day. We tithe from the company. We give to things. We plant God's seed. I said, I believe he opened the door.
Those are the times that really pulled this company together, was when we all had to roll up our sleeves and say, we don't know what to do, but we're going to do something.
Well, even in the down times, the first thing that came out of this corporation was the tithes. No matter whether we made money or not, we always tithe our money.
Well, how do you operate your business any other way? All right? If you're a Christian and you see what God does to your life, why not apply the same things to your business? Our business tithes 15% of what they make, and usually we give more than the 15%.
Tithing and giving to charities is important to Litco as a company, because we recognize here that God actually owns this company, and we're just caretakers of it, and we're here to do his work. Part of the work that we do, the rewards have to go to help do his work.
You build your house on a solid foundation. If you're a Christian, you read the Bible, That's a solid rock you want to build your house on, which is Christ Jesus. The business is built on that rock of Christ Jesus.
Second thing was plow a lot of faith and funds into overseas churches, India, Mexico, other places that have grown over the years, South America.
You know, when you go into this community and people say who you work for, Litco, usually they go, oh, okay, they're the giving company, because they do. And one of the things I really love about them also is that fact that, you know what, them profits that are made isn't just going into people's pockets. They also touch a lot of lives and change a lot of lives, not just in this area, and even around the world.
Because we put in a donation and they called me. The lady actually ended up knowing me. And she called and said, what is the money for? And I said, well, Litco's believes in giving back. And so that was just part of our profits at the end of the year we give out. And you were one of the places that we chose. And she said, it saved the benefit that they had because they didn't have much participation. And they put our name big on a big poster board and all kinds of stuff. And I said, we're not looking for that, right? We're just doing it because that's what we do as a company.
In the Litco building, it was a building built completely by Litco that became the model school for the nation of Cambodia. And because of that school and because of the excellence of that school and the seed that this business had provided from their profits to put that school over there, Cambodia as a nation today is being changed. It's being totally changed for Jesus Christ. That's what it's all about.
Gary went to a mission program down in South America. Cork's been on a couple of them. He even today, at his age, goes down, and when he's in Florida, sometimes goes over and helps build houses for Habitat for Humanity.
And we get together as a committee at the end of each year, and we look at the profits and how much we have to give away. And we decide as a group who we give to and what we give to them. And I think it's important for new people to know that as they go about their daily task, as we're doing our business and as we become more successful, that we can impact a lot of people in a lot of areas.
He'll help anybody in need. He helps everybody. It's unbelievable that a guy with his stature, success, and maybe that's what makes you successful, always willing to help your fellow man out. And he'll do that. I don't care if it's mediocre or big problem. Jumps in. Unbelievable. Guy is a supreme example of what a true Christian should be.
My name is Tia Ciferno. I'm Executive Director for Bella Women's Center. Yeah, Bella's mission is to reach women who are in the valley of decision. They're in an unexpected pregnancy, maybe full of pressures, and we are there to serve her medically and with no judgment, just a safe place for her to land, take a deep breath, get some tests she needs, and no matter what she decides, just follow through and support her. As of today, so of 3,346 women that have been served here at Bella with everything for no cost, which is so sweet. It has deepened my faith in a woman being able to hear her heart, no matter what's coming at her from every direction, the strength and courage of women, especially when there's faith involved as well. Bella has always taken a stand where we are not political at all, which enables us to just love that woman who's down the street, who just encountered this. She's got 2 kids already, and maybe she just lost her job or the guy left her. So even with the tumult and chaos in culture, we're there to be a place where, you've ever seen those snow globes? Where let's just let that all settle and let her hear her heart on next steps. About 70% of our women realize that even with challenges, they really did want to continue a pregnancy. They didn't know they had the support to do that. Litco's role has been invaluable for decades. Even when we were maternity home and knew that that wasn't the need and we needed to be this high-level medical clinic with professionals and the RNs and the kind of way that we're engaging her. So Litco actually, because of their sponsorship of fundraisers, we are acquiring more community support. But behind the scenes, everything they do, even being able to go for just business and advisory advice. They have been there for me when I have questions. I can go to the team and they help us with some leadership skills as well. But the funding has helped us keep our doors open. If you don't have a door open, the woman has, when she's in her most vulnerable place, she has nowhere to go that is really safe and helps her with her next steps. We just got a gift today I wanted to show you. Oh, where'd they go? Ah, they're over there. Okay. Okay, ready. So we just got a gift dropped off today of about maybe 50 of these. And they are, so Litco's helping us fill these. So thank you, Litco. Look at these, and they're furry and they're soft. They're like for early walkers, they're stride rights. But people drop stuff off all the time and we just shower these families with these gifts. So you're helping us fill these.
Now, one of the young men came in when we were in the basement, Russ Ensign. He didn't believe much.
He worked up front, red-headed guy. Russ didn't believe in God at all.
He ends up getting a divorce, right? And he was with us for a couple years and he left. I think it was 9 years later, he comes back and tells us he had an experience with Christ. And now he's a pastor. And I say, as a company, did we fulfill what God called us to do? And when I think about some of those things, I think how faithful God was. Not anything of ourselves, but his faithfulness. He stayed with Russ when he left here. We planted a seed.
Through whatever influence happened in the office, and ended up quitting to be a missionary.
The 5x25 wanted to look at what would make us not only a better company, but things that people could embrace, the things of God's creation. And so that's why I looked at, what we were doing, why we set up the recycling program, some of our byproduct, how could we turn that in? Planting of trees in our natural forest, which helps everything from water to give oxygen to do all these different things. I look at the program down in Sardis where we partner with Inca to this school to help young people seek a career if they're not so inclined to perhaps go to college, but a very good paying job in their community. They don't have to leave. Are we perfect? No, we're growing in this. We have made, I think, giant steps in the first year, but we're not there. There'll be continue ongoing. We're finding new things to do with our fiber, both corrugated dust and wood dust. The 5x25 is a start. It gets us out of the gate. But as the company moves forward, whomever is with it, I want people to come together to look at it, to say, how can we propagate this? How do we help other people? How can we expand? How can we be a better steward? Or body, soul, spirit. None of us know when we're going to go through deep water. So I tell each pastor, I said, there's no one more important in this business than you.
Yeah, so the plant coaches do a couple of different things. The main thing we're focusing on right now is communication skills for the new supervisors. How to communicate with their team, how to be a supervisor really, like what level should they be looking at, and what day-to-day things should they be doing. Because what we find is our supervisors will get focused on one thing, and we want them to be able to see a little bit higher a picture. They've all been promoted from the plant floor, so they're used to doing those day-to-day things where they need to see a little bit higher level.
And I said, I want you to get to know them first, because the sheep won't follow a shepherd they don't know.
The other thing that the plant coaches are doing is they'll individually meet with team members on the floor. So if somebody has an issue that they want to talk about, it's confidential, they can come in and get some help from the plant coaches, and they can also steer them in the right direction if they need counseling outside of the factory. So there's a couple of different approaches that they're taking, and I think they're really starting to get a foothold with those. I think the coaches do provide a benefit. Some folks are a little bit skeptical at first, and that's okay. But I think they've found that if they open up to them, it is helpful for them. And we've had several people that were helped outside of here and in their life with some of the help from the coaches. So I think it's worthwhile. And as long as they're comfortable with opening up to the coaches, I think it helps.
The plant coaches are actually, they've told me some great stuff, gave me some great tips on being a supervisor now. It's like, I'm not just working with the machine, I'm working with people now. Working with people is definitely like a huge thing for me now.
Shepherds got to smell like the sheep. So consequently, I want you to get to know them. And as you do, I don't want you to preach at them, but I want you to get to know them, and I want you to share with them.
They up top, they encourages us when they come down here. Sometimes they do one-on-one talks with each one out here on the floor just to see where their mind's at. And I asked Miss Joanne last time when they was down here, I said, why don't you just ask each one of them how they feel about their new supervisor right here. You don't have to even tell me. Just get a consensus of what the people out here saying. I don't have to be around it. I can take it one way or the other. That will help me improve in areas that I may be a little short in.
The most important thing I think in any business, particularly here at Litco, and what I like so much about working here, is that we understand that people's our most valuable asset, whether it be employees, or customers, or vendors.
My favorite part about working at Inca is the people here. I really like the people that I work with.
Well, on my Inca tombstone, I would like to say that he cared about the people. And if I did that and I poured myself into the people, and they knew that we cared about them and we wanted to develop them, and we cared about their development, and that they could eventually retire from Inca, raise their family during that time, that I think would be my largest legacy that I would like to leave.
Everybody gets along good and makes work not feel like work so much.
So we're small enough to have the personal touch, and from ownership to upper management on down, you're not just a number. They know that they care about your development, and you have opportunities.
I've seen these people or the company take care of the people that work for them that was above and beyond the call of duty. They did not have to. Did not have to.
First of all, it's a love they have for each other, okay? And love is a choice. No, can't force it, but it's a choice. And I see people genuinely willing to help each other. Do we have differences? We have to, yeah, we're human. And all we're going to do is try to show the love of Christ the best we can. And as I tell everybody here, they're here. God brought you here. Hopefully you're here for a long time, but if something else comes up, you choose to leave, you're still part of our family. We still love you.
And just the caring atmosphere. We virtually know everyone's family, their children, what's going on in their lives, and that tight relationship.
Yeah, everybody's got their talent. It is like an orchestra. Trombone, flute, piano, drums, conductor, they're all needed. Without the conductor, the orchestra don't play well. Without the flute, it doesn't get all the music. The secret is to try to get all the people together, play in harmony. That's a business. And we'll care for you. If you come here, your family. So we have all kinds of people in our family.